find dead bodies. I found dead bodies on the street. I've seen people get thrown out of 12-story windows in a hotel.
This is U.S. Homeless Stories, and tonight,
people would do anything to get what they want a lot of the times, you know.
I was getting sick off of it. I almost died. So I stopped taking them and I wanted to try a new drug.
Everybody hungry for something. For drugs, for some money, or for something. Yeah.
this is U.S. Homeless Stories, and tonight, we open the door to a Los Angeles most people will never dare to look at. In the dim back streets of this city, the American dream doesn't glow, it trembles. Break time 3 Untold 3. LA, once hailed as the shining capital of opportunity, now hides a reality so raw, it shocks even lifelong residents. In 2024, more than 312 people were experiencing homelessness across greater Los Angeles, according to official LASA data. And while the city saw a promising 10% drop in street homelessness for the first time in years, the overall crisis remains a relentless force, pushing families deeper into survival mode. South LA neighborhoods like Florence and South Central continue to bear the brunt, with rising encampments fueling a spike in emergency calls, up over 15% in some areas tied to homelessness-related incidents, while rents soared to historic highs, with median prices hitting $2,572 by mid-2024, forcing more families into cars, alleys, and sprawling tent zones stretching from downtown to the ocean. This is not the Los Angeles you see in movies. This is a city where one bad month can erase an entire life, where a single turn off the boulevard drops you into a world fighting to stay alive. And tonight, U.S. Homeless Stories is taking you straight into the part of LA that shatters the myth of the American dream. One, the blade that never sleeps, Figueroa, a corridor. The Figueroa corridor at night isn't just another street in Los Angeles. It's a place where people without homes fight through a reality most of the city never sees. When the sun slips behind the buildings and the noise of the day fades out, the sidewalks begin to tell a different story. It's a daily battle. You see tents stitched together with whatever scraps people can find. You see old cars that haven't run in years but still serve as bedrooms. People try to survive. You see faces carrying more exhaustion than a lifetime should ever hold. Here, homelessness isn't a statistic. It's a daily battle to stay warm, to stay safe, and to stay alive. Along this 4-mile stretch, hundreds of people try to survive night after night. Some were priced out of their apartments when rent spiked faster than their paychecks. Others lost everything after a medical emergency wiped out their savings. Some simply had one bad month, one layoff, one moment where life spiraled faster than they could catch it. And once you end up on a street like Figueroa, climbing back out feels like trying to lift the world with your bare hands. Outreach workers say many people here have been unhoused for years, not because they chose this life, but because every path back feels blocked. No ID, no stable address, no way to apply for housing, no place to shower before a job interview. A former mechanic now sleeps beside the shop where he used to work. A woman who once handled office paperwork now folds her belongings into plastic bags like they're the last pieces of her identity. Still, in the middle of all this darkness, small sparks of humanity refuse to die out. A stranger handing someone a bottle of water, a volunteer offering a warm blanket, a quiet conversation that reminds someone they're still seen. These moments don't erase the struggle, but they prove something important. People here are still holding on, even when the world has let go. Figueroa never sleeps, and neither do the people surviving on it. If you had to spend just one night on this street, what do you think would haunt you the most? Drop your thoughts below, and if you believe these stories deserve to be heard, subscribe so we can keep bringing the truth to light together. Two, the quiet spread, from Venice Beach to Hollywood. Homelessness in Los Angeles isn't loud anymore. It spreads in a slow, haunting way that slips into places people once thought were safe. All the way to Hollywood. In 2025, outreach teams saw more families living in cars, more people battling untreated illness on sidewalks, and more individuals struggling with addiction from Venice Beach all the way to Hollywood. Hardship was never supposed to take root. Doesn't explode overnight. It grows quietly, showing up in parking lots, alleyways, and neighborhoods where hardship was never supposed to take root. Along the Venice boardwalk, the sun still hits the ocean like a postcard. But just a few steps inland, you see the truth. People wrapped in thin blankets shake from the cold and from cravings they can't escape. Some fight infections without medical care. Others sit in the sand whispering to themselves, lost in thoughts they can't pull back from. When night falls, the tourists go home, and the street belongs to those trying to survive one more hour, one more breath. Hollywood hides the same pain under brighter lights. Behind the billboards and theaters, people care for wounds with whatever they can find. Bandages reused for days, bottles of water warming in the sun. Many once had steady jobs, cooks, laborers, hotel staff. But one hospital bill, one rent jump, or one moment of numbing the pain pushed them past the edge. Now some limp down alleys, some struggle to breathe, and some nod in and out of consciousness on sidewalks where dreams used to live. Old RVs parked from Santa Monica to the valley hold people fighting their own battles. A father with chronic pain, a woman choosing between insulin and gas money, a young man wrestling with withdrawal alone because he can't get treatment. Every breath takes effort. Every night feels like a gamble. The most devastating part? The silence. No alarms, no headlines, just more tense, more fragile bodies, and more lives quietly falling apart while the city keeps moving. If this truth hits you, please leave your thoughts below, and subscribe to US Homeless Stories so these voices are never forgotten.
How you doing?
3. The children who grow up thousands of homeless children are living a childhood shaped by too poor. Across Los Angeles, thousands of homeless children are living a childhood shaped by instability, fear, and responsibilities no child should ever carry. More than 17,245 students in the LA Unified School District were identified as homeless last school year, and every one of those numbers represents a young life pushed into adulthood far too soon. These kids sleep in cars, weekly rate motels, overcrowded shelters, or on relatives' couches, places where nothing feels permanent and everything feels borrowed. They don't have a bedroom to decorate, a quiet place to study, or the simple comfort of knowing where they'll lay their head at night. Their mornings don't look like the mornings most children have. Many wake up long before sunrise to clear out of a parking lot before security arrives, or to check out of a motel room their parents can afford for only a single night. Getting to school can take hours, especially when families are constantly being displaced and pushed farther from their children's campuses. By the time these kids sit at their desks, they're already carrying the fatigue of another restless night and the anxiety of not knowing where they'll sleep tonight. At school, they cling to moments of normalcy, a hot meal in the cafeteria, a quiet corner in the library, a teacher who notices when they're falling asleep in class. Homework gets done in back seats, motel bathrooms, or under streetlights. Many kids hide their situation from classmates, hoping no one asks about their home, their room, or why they always seem so tired. And yet, despite everything stacked against them, these children still dream. Break time threes. They imagine having a stable home, a bed of their own, and a future where they don't have to pretend to be okay. Their resilience is a reminder that potential doesn't disappear just because stability does. Protecting these kids isn't charity, it's a responsibility. And it's one of the most powerful investments we can make in the future of our communities. Fentanyl and the streets that lost control in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has been drowning in the fentanyl wave for years, but in 2025, the crisis feels like a quiet earthquake, one that shakes the city from underneath, while most people continue walking as if nothing happened. Officials point proudly to a 22% drop in drug-related overdose deaths in 2024, the sharpest decline on record. Yet anyone who steps into Skid Row at dawn knows numbers can lie. Sidewalks still look like battlefields. Some paramedics don't even wait for the first 911 call. They keep Narcan in their hands before they clock in, because they know the next body may appear at any moment. Outreach workers say a single pill costs less than a cup of coffee, but the damage it leaves behind is permanent. One $5 decision can take someone from a job to a tent in under 6 months. That is the brutal truth almost nobody wants to admit. Most people didn't set out to destroy their lives. They started with a prescription after a surgery, a back injury, a car accident, ordinary moments. Then the medication stopped, but the pain didn't. The streets stepped in to fill the silence. Harm reduction centers quietly admit a chilling fact. More than half the people they help had housing just a year ago. That means stability can break faster than a window in a storm. No one wakes up one morning and chooses this path. It happens in slow, painful steps, until one day they look in the mirror and barely recognize their own eyes. The darkest part isn't the overdose. It's how fentanyl silently erases people long before anyone notices. A father who once grilled burgers in the backyard can end up under a bridge with no memory of the last time he hugged his kids. A woman who once worked double shifts to pay for her apartment can end up wandering the same block at 3 a.m., chasing a feeling she no longer remembers. These aren't strangers. These were neighbors, workers, parents, dreamers, people whose lives cracked under pressure until the cracks became canyons. And yet, even in the middle of this shadow, one thing refuses to die: the will to keep going. Every sunrise gives someone a tiny moment of clarity, a moment where they whisper to themselves, maybe I can still come back. That tiny ember of hope is all some people have left, and it deserves to be seen, not ignored. If someone you loved slipped into this world, how far would you go to pull them back? Would you fight for them? Would you refuse to give up? Tell me your thoughts below. And if stories like this matter to you, even a little, please like, comment, and subscribe to US Homeless Stories so we can keep shining light into the places America tries to forget. Five. Skid Row, epicenter of tents and inequality. Skid Row is the kind of place that doesn't just stay in your memory, it grabs you by the throat and refuses to let go. Threes. Walk 50 blocks in this neighborhood, and you feel the weight in the air, as if the streets themselves are carrying stories too heavy for one lifetime. The glossy skyline of Los Angeles rises just a few blocks away, but here, progress feels like a rumor. People stopped believing it a long time ago. In 2025, the county says unsheltered homelessness dropped 9.5%. Yet independent counts reveal a much harsher truth. Thousands more people are living here than the official numbers dare to admit. They sleep behind tarp walls whipped by the wind, inside crumbling buildings no one patrols, or beneath streetlights that flicker like they're tired too. Basic survival turns into a battlefield of small victories. With fewer than a dozen working bathrooms for the entire district, lines form before sunrise like a quiet rebellion against neglect. Showers run only a few days a week, and when the doors finally open, the queue curls around the block, people clutching towels, backpacks, and whatever dignity they can still hold. Outreach teams do what they can, weaving between tents with gauze, water, and a few words of encouragement. But the need is endless, rising faster than any program can catch. Medical conditions worsen without refrigeration for insulin or antibiotics, and the emotional strain of years spent in limbo etches itself into faces that should never have had to age this quickly. And still, Skid Row breathes. Humanity refuses to disappear. Strangers share blankets on freezing nights. A volunteer shows up every Tuesday because he remembers the names others forget. Someone boils a pot of donated oatmeal and feeds 20 people before the sun even hits the roof lines. In a place the world calls lost, community still stitches itself together, thread by fragile thread. If these truths hit you hard, like the video, leave a comment. And subscribe US Homeless Stories so that we can continue to bring light into the dark corners that people deliberately forget. Six. Runaway teens, the crisis nobody talks about. They slip into bus stations, fast food shops, and libraries long after other kids have gone home. These aren't teens looking for adventure. They're children who left because the place that should have protected them became the place that hurt them most. In 2025, nearly 1,900 minors were counted as unhoused. But those who work on the ground know the real number is higher. Many teens avoid outreach workers because they're afraid of being forced back into environments filled with conflict or emotional wounds they don't yet have words for. Their lives revolve around survival routines no child should ever need to learn. Some ride the longest bus lines through the night because the warmth and movement feel safer than sleeping outside. Some wash up in school sinks or gym bathrooms so they can blend in at class the next morning. Others spend hours inside 24-hour restaurants, stretching a single drink because the bright lights feel like the last safe corner in the world. The streets expose them to risks they shouldn't have to face. Hunger becomes normal. Loneliness becomes a daily weight. Fear becomes something they read like a language, watching strangers closely, memorizing exits, protecting the few belongings they carry in one small backpack. Yet even in that constant pressure, so many of these teens hold on to pieces of hope. Libraries become sanctuaries where they check job listings or imagine a future bigger than their circumstances. Youth shelters, mentors, and patient adults often become turning points, reminding them they are worth stability, worth safety,
These kitchens have become a
worth a second chance. Runaway teens aren't running from responsibility, and they deserve a city willing to see them, protect them, and help them build the future they were never given. Place to land for those fighting, just to make it through the day. At the Midnight Mission, volunteers begin their work before sunrise, preparing over 2,000 meals a day. 7. The Charity Kitchens, keeping hope alive for thousands. Every morning in Los Angeles, long before the city wakes up, charity kitchens quietly come alive. Their lights turn on while the streets are still cold, offering something far more precious than food, a moment of dignity for people who've gone too long without it. In a city where more than 800,000 residents faced food insecurity in 2025, these kitchens have become a soft place to land for those fighting, just to make it through the day. At the Midnight Mission, volunteers begin their work before sunrise, preparing over 2,000 meals a day. The smell of warm oatmeal and coffee fills the hall as people file in, seniors stretching their limited benefits, workers exhausted from night shifts, and individuals who slept on the sidewalk the night before. Being greeted by name here matters. When life strips everything else away, kindness becomes the first step toward healing. Across Los Angeles County, the regional food bank sends trucks delivering enough food for nearly 300,000 meals each week. Their deliveries land in school pantries, small churches, community halls, and shelters, places where families quietly ask for help because rising rent makes choosing between bills and groceries a daily battle. Inside the Union Rescue Mission, a hot meal is paired with something deeper: access to services, medical care, addiction recovery, and caseworkers who sit one-on-one with people society often overlooks. At St. Francis Center, breakfast becomes a rare moment where no one feels judged. Seniors, low-income workers, and people from encampments share a table like neighbors rather than strangers. Volunteer groups like Food on Foot and Our Big Kitchen LA hand out sandwiches, fruit, and hygiene kits to people who often feel invisible. And when someone later returns, not for food, but to volunteer, that moment shows how hope can circle back. If these stories resonate with you, subscribe to US Homeless Stories so we can continue giving visibility to those the world forgets.
My hand kind of like secure. Yeah, okay. So two, one for you. Like I don't know which one you got. Like okay, so you got. That's okay. I got it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
I'm just saying, like cut the line.
No problem. Okay. That's okay. You got your order and stuff. Okay. And then. Okay. Okay. No problem. You're welcome. God bless you. God bless you. You got everything, right?
Everything.
Okay, there. Hello. Hi, curry chicken. God bless you. Take care. No, even a fly.
8. Final message: why we keep telling these stories. There's a moment every night in Los Angeles when the noise fades just enough for the truth to be heard. It's in the sound of a zipper closing on a tent before the cold moves in. It's in the quiet sob of someone who wasn't sure they would make it through the day. It's in the tired smile of a mother trying to protect her child from a world that feels too heavy. These moments never make the news, but they are the real heartbeat of the city. And they are the reason US Homeless Stories exists. Behind every sidewalk, under every overpass banner, someone is holding on with everything they have left. Growing, even with more shelters opening and more meals, the world sees homeless, but what we see are people who once had birthday cakes, childhood friends, after-school dreams, and plans for their future. No one imagines their life ending up in a tent or inside a car. Life simply pushed harder than they could stand. That's the part most people never understand, how thin that line really is. Even with programs growing, even with more shelters opening and more meals being served, the truth is that the night still feels long for too many. And yet somehow, hope keeps showing up. A warm plate handed out before sunrise. A volunteer remembering someone's name. And a child doing homework by flashlight because they still believe tomorrow can be better. These are small things, but for the people living through this, they mean everything. This is why we keep telling these stories. Because someone has to remind the world that every person on these streets is still human. Still deserving. Still worth seeing. And maybe, if enough people pay attention, change won't feel like an impossible dream anymore. What moment in tonight's story stayed with you the most? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your voice too. And if you believe these stories deserve to be told, don't leave without hitting like, dropping your thoughts below, and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us keep shining a light on the places most people never look. Tomorrow we continue. Break time, Duncan. Thrice. This is US Homeless Stories,